veebiseminar Madalhooaja teemal projekti Light in the Dark raames. Ja meil on siis täna kaks esinejat, on professor Xavier Font Surrey Ülikoolist, kes räägib siis ühest teisest projektist, mis on meie projektiga üsna sarnane, et tegeleb siis ka kestlike ja madalhooaja turismielamustega ja tema räägib siis, et miks neid peaks arendama, mille poolest need erinevad siis tüüpilistest suveteenustest ja millised üldse on head madalhooaja teenused. Seejärel te saate temalt siis küsimusi küsida ja pärast seda esitlen mina siis projekti Light in the Dark materjale ja tööriistu, mis meil ongi turismiettevõtjatele välja töötatud selleks, et te saaksite nende abil luua uusi madalhooaja elamusi. Et meil on mõned veebiseminarid juba toimunud selle projekti raames, aga see siin on siis hästi praktilise suunitlusega, et konkreetselt näitangi, millised need materjalid on ja kuidas te neid kasutada saate. Aga nüüd ma siis lülitun inglise keele peale ja kutsun meie esimese esineja. So Xavier, I did a short introduction to you and this seminar in Estonian, but now you can start your presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for joining today. I know it's always a little bit trickier when you are looking at a presentation in another language, so hopefully what we got here will be of use to you. I know the session is also being recorded, and then sometimes it's easier to watch it again more slowly in your own language and then seeing how you can apply some of the concepts. I also shared some additional training materials with Liisa. The project that it's interesting because you guys are working on an Interreg project, and the original materials I'm presenting you today also came from an Interreg project, but in our case, the Interreg project between France and England, because we have similar situations to yourselves, right? Pretty much every destination is trying to create more sustainable experiences as a way of reducing seasonality. And this seasonality reduction is something that affects all of us. I am picking up just some elements of what normally is a 4-hour training course, and you'll see from the materials I've sent to Liisa, and she will share with you that there is a lot more detail there, and hopefully you can follow that at your own pace. And of course, the examples I'm using today come from France and England, and in some cases you'll say that's not applicable to the Baltic context where I'm operating. It's part of your job also to then think about how do you replicate some of those ideas. So 4 key elements I want to talk about. First of all, the fact that for different seasons we have different markets. One of the key mistakes I think businesses tend to make is hoping that in the low season they will attract the same markets, but also for the same reasons for traveling as we would have in the main summer season. You wouldn't believe how difficult it was when I did this work in England to find a photo like the one on the right-hand side. Not only because she is pregnant, which also does tend to not appear in marketing materials, but because the landscape looks like autumn. Most of the photography that we see in UK marketing materials makes it look like England, it's sunny all year round, and it's always spring. Right? It seems that photographers only take photos at some times in the year. The main point I want you to think about here is your off-season customers are definitely going to be different to your high-season customers. Typically, the low-season travelers are seeking leisure and travel experiences for different reasons. They're looking for different benefits. They will look for different suppliers. And we need to invest more time identifying those differences between the high season and the shoulder or low season customers. One of the things we noticed was that in low season, we tend to find mostly local customers as our tourist customers. You'll all remember from COVID, where suddenly we remembered the local customers existed, and we went back to learning how to cater for their needs. And now the COVID is in the past, we've gone back to the idea of all of our marketing has to be for customers who are far away, right? Honestly, I think we need to go back to thinking of locals first, especially in low season. But what we also know is the local customers are looking for very different products. First-time customers are more predictable. They will want to go to the iconic locations, but they're also harder to influence because there are certain things they have to do. If you go to Paris for the first time in your life, you will go to the Eiffel Tower, right? If you go to Paris for the third time, you no longer go there. And the same will apply in your context. First-time customers are probably price sensitive, but very often use price as a sign of quality because they cannot judge quality. Like, I've never been to Estonia. How would I judge quality of one of your services? And normally I would use previous customer comments as well as price. And something is expensive, I'll think, well, surely it should be better. Repeat customers don't choose like this. And I think we then need to think of different ways in which we're going to communicate to those repeat customers. Repeat customers understand much better what quality looks like. They can differentiate between a good product and a fake product made for tourists. And for the repeat customer market, therefore, word of mouth is crucial. Let me give you an example of how different sometimes we can make our offer for summer customers and shoulder customers. The photo you got here is from a museum, and this museum has got some very important pieces. In winter, however, they empty the entire museum. The whole collection is put on storage, and the museum instead is being used as an art club for local children mostly, but also adults, because they realize that the local people will not go and revisit the same museum they've already visited in the past. And if they did, they wouldn't want to go in winter anyway. And since in winter we don't have tourists, we repurpose our facilities from a tourist event calendar to a cultural program for our local communities. So do not be afraid of then thinking, what entirely different purposes or uses could I have for the same resources, for the same equipment in my low season? Low season really is also about repeat visitation. They tend to be shorter visits, and they tend to be not only shorter, but also with less warning, because they tend to be much more weather dependent. So you need to tell customers what to look forward to. For example, when you guys go to the cinema, what's the first thing you do? You see trailers of the next films coming up in the next month. Do you, as businesses, tell the customers what to expect next week or next month when they're visiting you now? You also create an annual pass so people can go back to your visitor attraction, but even to your cafe. You could have a system where people can come back and they can have discounts. We've seen cafes in England where basically you can pay a weekly membership for a coffee shop, and you get 3 coffees per week from the coffee shop. And therefore, as a result of that, people come back more often, and obviously they do it at a discount. Or you can create this annual pass for saying you have a midweek membership, or a spring to or autumn to spring membership, or a 9 to 3 p.m. membership. In the same way that gyms have discounts for off-peak times, you can do the same for your restaurant or for your hotel, or for whatever, or a visitor attraction. Find ways of creating a sense of belonging. Create a club for regular users. Give them status, give them some loyalty. Make sure that they are treated as VIPs and they're the first people that will have new offers. Run specific clubs. Find ways of upselling. So, for example, we've seen cafes that say, if you can show to us that this week is your birthday, we will give you a free cake. And it's like, well, great. But you never go to eat free cake on your own, right? You go with somebody. So one person gets free cake, but typically another 3 people will pay for cake and coffee. So find different ways of encouraging that repeat visitation. You probably have used geocaching in your destination, and this particular place in France used geocaching, but they invested a lot of money into the geocaching. You can see on the photo that these are not just places where people go and they collect something and they put something else instead. They made all these badges collectible. And when they were going to release new badges, they would, in social media, they would say, right, we're only releasing 50 new badges of this type. And they're all going to be released this weekend in February, right? So all these tradable badges, in the same way that you may remember from being children, you could trade stickers. from your favorite footballers or whatever it was. They did it as a way of encouraging people to go into nature and to do new activities. This became like a life-size treasure hunt. Or this is another example. This one comes from Spain, in fact. In the UK, we have a concept called the National Trust's 50 Things to Do Before You Are 11 3/4 years old. You'll ask, why 11 3/4? Well, it's a much more fun number than 12, but also because in the UK, at the age of 12, children go to secondary school and something strange happens in their adolescent brains, and they're not really normal people until they become 18 or 20 years old again. So what we try to do here is say, look, let's do activities for the younger kids. And all the activities tend to be very much nature-based activities. When I showed this example to this manager of this resort in Spain, he said, I love it, but I'm going to make sure that 10 of those activities can only be done in spring and 10 of them in autumn, because in winter I already have ski tourism. These places in a ski resort. And in summer I already have, the mainstream holidays. So I need people to come in spring and autumn. And he basically created a prize that if you did all 50, you as a family, you got a free weekend in a teepee or a yurt. And I said to David, the owner, that's really generous. And he said, it's not generous at all. The people that have done all 50 activities, they probably come 6 or 7 weekends already. And they tend to be the nice families, the families that want to do clean, wholesome things in nature. I want more customers like that. I don't want the families that come and are complaining the whole weekend that they wanted to be playing with their Xbox or they want to be attached to their phone or their iPad. So you can create different activities and bundling them based on those some of those ideas. I think one thing also worth remembering is that for most of us, we take our own hometown for granted, and we don't really realize what's special about your place in the low season. So you need to think about how you're going to sell that. And I have to say, I've not visited Estonia, but I spent 3 years working in Finland in projects around forest tourism. And I know you'll tell me Finland is not Estonia. I get that. But there were some similarities as far as I understand. I see Lisa smiling. And but there are some similarities in the sense that, I don't know about Estonia, but people in Finland, they were not very good at marketing. They were not very convinced about how to sell their own products. And I was saying to them, guys, the colors, the smell, the sounds, there's something really amazing about your national parks, about your nature. And they said, sauna. No, sauna, everybody has a sauna. Everybody has a lake. Everybody has a canoe. And I was like, no, I don't think so. So find ways in which you can sell your migratory birds, your animals, the flowers, the mushrooms, like all the different activities and things in nature that you've got that other places do not have, right? But also you have to go beyond. And I know I'm pushing your buttons here, but sell emotions. You have to show to your customers. There's somebody who's got the microphone on, by the way. It would be great if they could turn it off. Thanks. Probably, Lisa, you can mute them. And so find ways in which you can turn challenges or turn things that will be seen often as a negative, like, for example, this ice, this snow, it's cold. Turn all that into challenges, right? So turn it into an adventure. And then also playing with what the Danish people would call hygge, which I've completely mispronounced, I know. But that sensation of coziness and serenity inside when outside is really cold. And obviously you need to still emphasize access and making sure that places are open and available. But you may also want to say to your customers, there are places that in summer they're going to be too crowded, or in summer they don't even open, and therefore come and visit our places in the winter when you're going to feel that the entire place is just there for you. So think about it. Sometimes if you wanted to take your partner to a restaurant and you were the only 2 people in the restaurant, you would think that this is really sad. It must be a terrible restaurant. Nobody else wants to come here. Imagine for a second you turn it around. And you say to your partner, no, it's not great. I've booked the entire restaurant so we can just have it for the 2 of us. And now there are 50 candles. And there's only the 2 of you and 1 waiter, and the entire place is for you. The same situation suddenly goes from feeling like you are losers because you're the only 2 people there to saying, I feel really special. So you have to find ways in which that kind of lack of other tourists or that kind of uniqueness can be sold as a strength, not as a weakness of your product. So, also in the winter, and particularly in the part of the world where you are, you're going to have to offer a mixture of indoor and outdoor spaces, right? Particularly if many of your activities are outdoor driven, you're going to have to find ways of showing to customers and telling them in advance, you are not going to be freezing at -20 all the time. We're going to be combining these different things. You will have to give them suitable equipment. Many of the customers will come from abroad are not going to buy equipment just to come once. You're going to have to guarantee me weatherproof access, like them, making sure that if you're attracting people to places where they don't know how to drive in the conditions they're going to find, for example, with ice and snow, you reassure them, and you're going to have to train your staff accordingly to tell them what to expect. Giving you a different example, again, we're going back to the south of England, but we've discovered some of the most beautiful plants in the winter. In English, they're called midwinter fires. They're a type of corners, right? And what we've seen is that garden centers are changing their plants and the composition of their gardens. So different sections of the garden are of interest in winter, in autumn, in spring, and in summer. Honestly, the midwinter fire is, you can see the photos here and you can see some kind of sections here that are icy. It's beautiful up to February. The ones in my garden, I just cut them this weekend. From now until October, it's boring. So from now until October, you need something else of interest in your garden. But in winter, they are basically at their best. And the reason I'm saying this, you need to find ways of upgrading your infrastructure, in this case, your gardening program, your events, to make sure that people want to come back. Garden centers in the UK basically are created lighting on the floor. So customers, when it starts to get dark, they can still see, because many of their visitors to garden centers tend to be elderly and they find difficulty seeing when there isn't very good light. So we've now created systems where the lights on the floor guide you how to go from A to B. And then also we're creating different activities so people can spend some time outdoors and spend some time indoors. And linked to this, I think it's important that we consider how we're going to design more innovative experiences. And what do I mean by these more innovative experiences? Find ways in which the tourists will be able to discover new things to do. Right? So I was just saying a few minutes ago that probably in the winter you'll have fewer customers than you have in summer. To be fair, the 5 ideas I'm giving you here, you can apply them in high season as well. It's just that for some reason in high season, we tend to be less creative with our new products because we already have customers coming. But also in high season, we normally find that we don't want to take the risk in experimenting. Right? Imagine if you made a mistake, with some of your high season products, and then your customers do not want to come back. So what I'm thinking is experiment in the low season to see whether customers like it. And especially if in low season you have regular loyal customers, it will be easier to ask your loyal customers, did you like this? Did you like it better this time than last time? But what do you think we should change? Many of the customers will be quite happy to have a conversation with you about some of these topics. But anyway, so how do you experiment? First of all, personalize, right? Go back to your customer and say to them, what can I do for you this special? If you have a database of your previous customers, go back to your database and give your customers letters A, B, C, D. Your customers with the letter A will be the ones, let's say, for example, if you're a restaurant. If you're a restaurant, customers with letter A come every week. Customers with letter B maybe come once a month. Customers with letter C come once per year. And customers with letter D, they came once and they never came back again. If you're a restaurant, maybe you don't have too many details for your customers. But if you are a hotel or if you are a visitor attraction, if you have ways of capturing that data set, you could also have it. Of course, if you're a hotel, customers are not coming every week to be group A. Maybe there'll be customers that come more than once per year, right? The key always here is going to be, how do I use a sustainable bonus, a sustainable experience to create a personalization element that means those customers will come back. So let me give you an example. Things tend to always work better when you have examples than when you have a broad concept. I work with a farm tourism location where they had alpacas and they had sheep. And I met them in November. And I said, how are your bookings between now and Easter weekend? And they said, very, very low. They're pretty terrible. And I said, okay, when will your sheep give birth to their babies? And they said, February. Okay, but you have no customers. No. Let's do something. Let's go back to your database and we send an email only to a group of customers as a test. And we say to them, would you like to be a midwife to a baby lamb? Come in February, we can guarantee you that in the 1 week or 3, 4, 5 days you'll be here in our farm, some of our baby lambs will be born and you can be part of it. Now, identify activities like this that will only happen in winter as a way of bringing the customers closer. Of course, and if any of you are farmers, you know that lambs don't need any help from humans, typically, right? But people from the city don't know that. People from the city were just there with a camera, taking photos and uploading them onto, Instagram. And then they had the most amazing bragging rights when they went back to the office on Monday, because they could say to all their friends, I have done something that none of you have done before. Right? I've been part of something that felt very real. So in the same way here, you could personalize by sending these kind of detailed emails to people saying, here are some things we can do at this time of year. You could then also think, well, how do I package different activities? So packaging is my second advice in here. Why packaging? In summer, most of the other businesses around you will probably be open. But very often, if you're in a rural area, customers will think, maybe I shouldn't go at this time of year. Maybe accommodation is open, but probably there will not be activities. There will not be restaurants open. There will not be, tourist attractions. So here you need to package it this time of year so to be able to show to the tourists, hey, here's what the weekend looks like from Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. So they can see all the options they'll have available, right? I'm not saying that you do like a price inclusive. If you wanted to, you could do, but you can basically show to them all the options they'll have while they're there, because you need to get customers to visualize themselves in doing those things. Okay? You have to make it sound premium. The example I gave you earlier on about emphasizing that there's actually a superior quality and exclusivity to all your experiences. The idea of the restaurant that could be empty and just for you, or empty because it's a sad restaurant, right? And it's the same experience. So make it sound like it's not empty, it's just exclusive for you, right? And linked to this also the idea of gamification. And, so very often in the summer, you may be able to do activities for a larger group of people. But in winter, you can't, because you don't know when your customers are going to turn up. So create it as a game where the customers basically become part of the activities you're doing, and also co-create those activities. Do it in a way that the customers become the protagonists of the activities they've got to do, as opposed to just being the passive recipients of some of those activities. So I can give you more examples, but in the UK, for example, we're such a crowded country, we have very, very few places where we have dark skies. And in this particular location, for 1 week, when there are school holidays, they've created a system where you can do it in a kind of coordinated way, and there will be guides that will tell you about the dark skies and so on. But actually, what works a lot better is for businesses that are fairly remote to just put information for customers saying, here's how you can identify dark skies on your own. If you have an Android phone, here's the app. If you have an Apple phone, here's the app. And here are the things you can look for. And here's what you can see. Right? So they're not giving you an actual human guide. They're just telling you how to use your phone to be able to identify some of these stars. And also they are giving you some instructions on how to take photos of dark skies that you can share with other people. right? So you don't have to do it when it's like very intensive in staff time, and therefore it's very costly to do. You can also create a do-it-yourself sort of activities that the customers would be able to do when there's low demand. And this happens in many locations, to be fair. I know the photos I'm showing you here don't look like winter to you. Like you may say, hey, in Estonia, that looks like summer. That doesn't look like winter. Okay, so in France, that's what winter looks like. Okay, but what this particular destination said is in summer, we get people coming to the beach and they're coming to swim. In winter, nobody comes. And the hoteliers were saying, well, of course they don't come because it's cold. And our argument was, well, that's not the reason, really, because people go skiing in winter and it's cold. So the problem is not it's cold. The problem is nobody has considered coming to you in what is a French winter, right? They choose to do something else. So 5 resorts created a campaign called The Seaside in Winter, and they used language that was linked to skiing, around thrills, about well-being, about nature, and the promotion was all around this language of winter, about slopes, about wetsuit, about sliding, and they created ideas of things you just couldn't do in the summer in those locations. And because they shared all the marketing effort between 5 places, it worked quite well for them. Honestly, in a place like Estonia, you could create a bucket list. You could basically say out of the ordinary experiences or things that people consider as extreme or weird and wonderful experiences. In Scotland, I recommended a campaign. Scotland, I think a bit like Estonia, to be fair, there's a real pride of your nationality. Like being Scottish is really important to you. Like if I go to a Scottish person and I ask them, are you English? They'll probably really insult me. It's like, I'm not English, I'm Scottish, and I'm really proud of it. So we created a campaign that says, well, 50 things to do to prove you're really Scottish. Like no person can claim that they're actually Scottish if they haven't done all these 50 things. You could create something similar for Estonia. Like there are 50 things you need to have, I don't know, tried, eaten, experienced. Like you need to have done certain physical activities. You need to have gone mushroom picking and then cook them in a particular way. You need to have, I don't know, fish your own salmon and then smoke your salmon, or your trout or your salmon, near an open fire. You need to have done all these outdoor activities, but also visited certain heritage sites and so on to be able to claim you're a real Estonian person, right? And you could then say, well, hey, you could almost create like a website where people then, say how many things they've done and they can get kind of recognition from their friends for doing it and so on. All of these also linked to quite often reconnecting with nature. And I think during COVID, many of us found a way of reconnecting with nature. And in some cases, we seem to have lost that connection that we made at the time. I also think many of the customers you'll attract to come in winter, they'll be interested in going back to simpler things. So offering no internet zones, for example, going to a business and saying we're replacing a microwave for a fire pit. We're providing hampers with fresh local produce. We're giving you a cooking guide on how to cook with local ingredients and so on. And so we've got examples like this from the UK. You'll probably say that's not snow. That's just like a little sprinkling. But for us in England, that's as much snow as we get. But all these luxury pods, they work really well, both in winter, but to be fair, most year round for us. And but also we found other ways of creating some of these experiences, and particularly around translating emotions to experiences. So we were asking customers, why do you go out as a family, in November, December? And they mostly said, well, we want to feel like a family. It's about doing something together. And then we think, so actually the activity is less important than the sense of togetherness, the sense of, doing something that creates family memories. So a lot of the effort around creating winter experiences, then saying, okay, so how will I create experiences that make people feel a certain way? And almost what you end up doing is less important. right? We could go into this in more detail, but we haven't really got so much time today. But to just give you an example I came across from the United States, this is an example that one of my students gave to me. This was a very standard hotel, and people would go there for romantic weekend breaks. Like, okay, that's fine. And then they said, right, in October, we will provide the very, very American idea of making your own s'mores. $5 pack, which is about about €4, right? You get this pack that basically has chocolate, you've got marshmallows, and then you've got these crackers. You can see here on the plate. So what you really do here is you get a cracker, you put chocolate in the middle, more marshmallows, and then on top another cracker, a bit like a sandwich. And then with some metal tongs, you toast the crackers, and then the marshmallows just melt, quite a lot actually, and the chocolate melts just a little bit. And this is something that most North American people will remember from when they were children. And so just bring you back to those memories from however many years ago. So for romantic couples, one of the things they wanted to do was do things together because you're creating memories together. And I mean romantic couples of any age group, okay, not only young people. So and essentially what they found is that customers were posting photos of this, not photos of the bedroom, but photos of the things they were doing, and it created additional promotion for the property. So let's just work through a calendar, and you may say your calendar will look very different according to your location. But to me, the calendar starts at Halloween. Okay, why Halloween? I know it's very American, just forgive me for that, but actually Halloween in the UK is the second holiday in the year where people spend most money in supermarkets. Holiday number one, of course, is Christmas. But actually people spend more money in Halloween than they spend for Easter. You may be surprised about that, but in Halloween they're buying costumes and they're buying food. So there's a fantastic market for high-end, tailor-made experiences. Like you could bring in team building, kind of experiences around Halloween, but also the market for pre-Christmas office parties is grown a lot. In the UK, most offices still work in person 3 days per week, and we work from home 2 days per week. That's one thing that didn't change after COVID, right? My students do not want to go and get jobs in companies where they'll have to work 5 days per week from the office. 3 and 2 is acceptable. What that means is that most businesses are spending quite a bit of money for office parties because they need to get the whole team together and do things together, right? So more sustainable, authentic, themed team building experiences makes them very, very different from saying, we're going to have, 3 days drinking in Dublin or 3 days drinking in Amsterdam, which tend to be sadly very common places to go to, right? We also have a massive market for Christmas shopping, and your tourist destinations could be selling the idea of come to my location, come to my city, come to my rural tourist destination, and you can participate in workshops, you can make your own gifts, you can buy things from local craft makers, you can buy personalized gifts. Because I think the majority of us, we would prefer to receive something as a Christmas gift that had some meaning than something that was bought from Amazon. Right? Let me tell you a secret. Buying Christmas gifts from Amazon does not show a sign of love and does not show a sign of really having thought a lot about the person you're buying gifts for. Buying something is much more personalized, sends a very different message. In the UK, at least, there's a massive market for Christmas and New Year's holidays. Okay, there are more and more families that are basically, divorced, separated, the children live far away. And so we need, there's a desire to not stay at home for Christmas, but to go away for a Christmas holiday. The difficulty for us is between New Year's and Valentine's Day. These are very long, dark, nights. And it's hard to get customers to come there. So one thing that we've done is we've promoted the idea of vouchers that you can give as a Christmas gift to your loved ones. And so essentially you offer them to previous customers and you say, if you want to encourage somebody to come to our destination, you can give them a voucher. This is a very, very, very discounted voucher, We are not advertising it generally. We're only giving it to those of you who are already prior customers, but it needs to be used between January and February. And then we start to have Chinese New Year, lambing season, and so on, other things that are much more popular by the end of the winter period and going into spring. I'm not going to tell you much about marketing and storytelling, mostly because Lisa said keep it to 30 minutes and then we'll have time for questions. But also because marketing and storytelling, the way I'm showing it to you here, is marketing 101. It's the marketing things you guys should be doing already, but many of you are not doing. So I'm going to just walk you through very, very quickly some basics of marketing. First of all, search online for things like 10 things to do in winter in your town, or 10 winter wedding venues, or winter days out, to find out what other people are selling in your area or in destinations comparable to yours. And then you can think about, well, how would I sell that? Identify online publications that may need content. Look at travel blogs, travel magazines. They always need new content. Don't give them content for summer. They already have too much choice for summer. Give them things to do off season, because you've got a much better chance of being shown. Invest money in winter photography, right? Very, very often we invest money in summer photos. And then also update your website regularly. So, I remember that in October, I was delivering this seminar in Spain, and I was saying to the hotels in Barcelona, do the photos from your website show people wearing shorts and a t-shirt? And the answer was yes. So if in September that's what you're showing, the message you're telling customers is, do not come back to Barcelona until you can wear shorts and a t-shirt, which is going to be around May. Right? And I was saying to them, you're creating the problem for yourselves. You need to show people wearing winter clothes. Otherwise, why would they want to come in winter? Right? You need to show them, the photos have to show that winter content. Right? So you can do all sorts of things. You may have to pay for social media campaigns where you basically encourage affiliate marketing, right? The photo you got here on the left-hand side is from, it's this photo of one man, but basically it's two gay men who are super well known amongst the LGBTQ plus community in the UK. You can see that this one post in Instagram had more than 12,000 likes. And if you look at the text, it's not for me, but it worked because you got 12,800 likes, right? But essentially, it's all about, having our endless cups of tea and smelling the autumn dancing in the breeze. So it was all about going there in autumn and celebrating their birthday. And essentially, this company, Boutique Retreats, had given them their accommodation for free as long as they posted a certain number of posts about how wonderful this place was. Okay. You're going to have to invest, if you want to get something in winter. Right, Lisa, last slide. You don't have to have a heart attack just yet. Okay, we're doing this. Okay, so reducing seasonality has many, many benefits. Before you start your marketing campaign, before you design new products, you have to always ask yourself, what will be the marketing benefits of my campaign? Which is the desired outcome? Every single one of your desired outcomes can be materialized into a different marketing campaign. So if what you're trying to do is generate year-round income, you'll do one thing. If you're wanting to improve the quality of your service by being open all year round, you'll design something else. If you want to maintain your mid-season prices, you'll do something else, and so on and so forth. But you can see here at least 6 generic benefits you could have from improving the creativity, the variety, the diversity of your winter offering. So, I said, Lisa, that was the last slide. Sorry, I was lying. I have one more in here. But I'm just going straight to the brainstorming element. Honestly, I'm giving you here 7 different ways in which you could improve the profitability of your winter business. So theme your offer. Decorate it for Halloween, decorate it for Christmas, decorate it for Chinese New Year. Make it longer by mixing indoors and outdoor activities. Make it unique by tempting customers with small gifts. that they only get in the winter. Make it special by selling them something that they can only do outside the peak season. Increase the size of the group by encouraging them to bring a friend and giving them some benefits for doing that. Share it with another business by doing joint marketing campaigns and bundling your products. And also share it with the community by doing activities the locals and visitors will be able to do together. This really is the last one. We have a website called tourismexperience.org. This was paid by the Interreg Experience project that I am just mentioning, and where really all the materials I've just shown you now come from. And but I'll stop sharing now so we can go back to questions more comfortably.
Thank you so much, Xavier. I think we all got some really good inspiration from this, and it's really nice to see results from another project dealing with a similar topic as we are in Light in the Dark. But yes, now it's time for questions. So if you have a question for Xavier, you can either open your microphone and ask. You can also ask in Estonian. I can translate. If you want, you can write it in chat. So yes, please, questions. Ma ütlen eesti keeles ka, et võite eesti keeles ka küsida ja ma võin tõlkida. Or I can start. I had a question. What would you say is the biggest difference between like summer products and off-season products?
The lack of creativity of the businesses running the business. Sorry, I'm being really direct here because we don't have time to waste. But we have been delivering the very same summer product every single year. And I think there's very little diversity and creativity in enhancing that product. And we're hoping that doing the same thing again next year, it will sell the same or a bit more. And it doesn't work. The main difference between businesses that have winter customers and the ones that have customers in summer only is that year-round businesses are much more creative.
Mm-hmm. And have you experienced some really special off-season product that, I don't know, is your favorite or just really standing out from the others?
Difficult to tell. I mean, look, I've also had massive disappointments with winter tourism, right? The idea of come and see the Northern Lights. And you're thinking, yeah, but you're taking me to a location where you can't really see the Northern Lights. You just want to sell that, right? Or products that were not necessarily adapted for the needs of the tourists. Right. So I've seen too many products. I've assumed the tourists have prior knowledge or that they come prepared or the tourists will really understand what the product is. So particularly if you're selling both for domestic customers and international customers, just assume that the international customers are stupid, right? And the international customers just don't have the understanding of that you have about what's normal, what's not normal in your destinations. And international customers will be risk averse. They will not want to do something they perceive could possibly go wrong. So you're going to have to really hold their hand and help them do all those things.
Mm-hmm. There is a question in the chat. I think you should be able to see it, or I can read it out.
I can. Yes, Inga. So you're saying, in case I have a new idea for an off-season service or product event, what would be good methods of finding out the potential size of the target group? So first of all, I would start by looking at who your current clients are in that off season and doing some experimentation with your current clients. If you have a bunch of clients who are already very regular with you, I would treat them as your friendly customer test group. And I would invest some money saying to them, come and try it with us. We will give it to you at massive discount as a way, but then we want to learn from you as to whether it works or it doesn't work. Right. Then also in terms of potential size of the target group, obviously it does depend on what you got in mind. And I know you're not necessarily going to put it here, so nobody really steals your idea. So I don't know where to go with that. But the other thing I would say is, how much do you use AI right now to do some testing? Because while AI may not have all the answers, I think it can help you with some of the questions you've got around looking at what could be my total available market for a product, or giving you some estimates of the market size for different groups or subgroups. And even if it doesn't have the data, I think you can keep asking questions. And look, the answers come fast, okay? So it's not like you're wasting an awful lot of time for doing some of the testing, including asking ChatGPT for examples from other locations and competitors and so on. The more narrow your product is, the harder it's going to be to find some examples. But you can still work with that.
Okay, if there is no more questions at the moment, we will move on. A really big thank you to Xavier. It was really interesting to hear the experience, project results, and everything you have found out. So yes, really big thank you. And now I will switch back to Estonian because I will be talking about the light in the dark materials.
So we have a question from May, accommodation without internet, pros and cons. Okay. And I remember going to a restaurant where there was a sign at the table that said, oh no, there's no internet here. I may have to talk to the person sitting in front of me. They look nice enough. Right. So I would sell your accommodation without internet as a detoxing retreat. Sell it as a place where you can say, this is ideal for yoga. This is ideal for enjoying the silence. Tell them about how there are, 50 different bird species that they can hear the sounds of. And you could possibly have some recordings saying, these are the sounds of the different birds that we have in the area. Sell it to them as, like your chance of moving away from all that pressure. Right? You can really sell this well for families where you then focus on that family togetherness. So May, look at the example I was saying, the 50 things to do before you're 11 3/4. You will find this online and you can create your own version of that where you can say to people, you won't even miss not having the internet because there's all these different things that you can do here that will actually make you feel like a family again. I think, you can work on all that. You'll probably still have to have a very good selection of films or things for the family to do in addition to board games and so on. Hopefully that helps. You probably tell me you've tried all of that.
Okay, great. But now looking at the time, we do have to move on, but it's great that we some questions and your opinions on those topics. So yes, thank you.
All right, thanks for inviting me. Bye for now.
Yes, goodbye. Hästi, nüüd lähme siis eesti keele peale tagasi ja ma jagan oma ekraani. Kohe vaatan. Nii, loodan, et seda on näha. Ja mina räägin siis meie Light in the Dark projekti materjalidest, mis on siis Interregi Läänemere piirkonna projekt. Ja alustuseks ma näitan ühte videot, mis meil on selles projektis valminud. Võib-olla osa teist on seda juba näinud, aga ma arvan, et ka teist korda on seda üsna põnev vaadata. Nii et ma loodan, et see heli tuleb ka läbi ja panen käima.
Nothing. Less. How about getting less on your journey? Because we don't have much of some things up here in the north. Almost nothing. No sounds, no crowds, no stress, no pollution. We avoid junk food, cheap souvenirs, and tourist traps. Here, we don't escape from the heat. But on the other hand, we are nothing less than fantastic, silent, solitary, breathtaking, delicious, beautiful, adventurous, smiling, authentic, welcoming, true, sustainable, affordable, natural, cozy, healthy. The hidden secret. We are your next destination. We are one destination but with several options. In the Baltic Sea region, you can experience culture, adventure, food, silence, activity, or just breathtaking nature. We have everything when you're looking for nothing. We are the destination where less is more. The Baltic Sea. Nothing less.
Loodan, et see viis meid kõiki samale lainele. See on siis meie turunduskontseptsiooni või üldiselt selle projekti kontseptsiooni kokkuvõttev video. Aga sellest projektist natuke lähemalt, et selle projekti eesmärk on siis aidata turismiettevõtjatel luua looduspõhiseid madalhooaja pakkumisi, et inimesed külastaksid meie Põhja-Läänemere piirkonda aastaringselt. Ja me teeme koostööd siis erinevate TMO-de ja turismiettevõtetega 5 Läänemere riigis, mis on siis Eesti, Läti, Leedu, Soome ja Rootsi, kus meil on selle projekti partnerid, et selle sama kontseptsiooni alusel luua elamusi, mis meelitaksid siia inimesi ka pimedatel kuudel, ehk siis sellest ka projekti pealkiri. Üks tsitaat ka, et madalhooaega ei ole vaja siis eraldi kujundada, vaid see tuleb inimestele lihtsalt kättesaadavaks teha ja paljudes paikades on olemas vaikus, kaunis loodus, kohalik toit ja ehedad võõrustajad ehk kõik see, mida inimesed tegelikult siit piirkonnast otsivad. Ehk potentsiaal on meil olemas, aga need väärtused tuleb lihtsalt muuta külastajale tähenduslikuks ja ka müüdavaks, mis on siis meie projektijuhi Janina Selini poolt tsitaat. Ehk siis jah, ettevõtetel on potentsiaal olemas, aga kuidas see müüdavateks elamusteks muuta? Ma panin siia siis kokku need tööriistad või materjalid, mida ma täna tutvustan. Et siit on siis näha, mis meil on selle projekti jooksul välja töötatud. Ja ma alustan siis 2 uuringuga, mis me projekti alguses läbi viisime. Esimene oli siis Läänemere piirkonna külastajate seas, kes identifitseerisid enda loodusturistina. Ja selle eesmärk oli siis teada saada nende turistide profiilid, käitumine, motivatsioon ja eelistused. Meil oli siis 9 riigist peaaegu 5000 vastajat ja need olid siis inimesed, kes viimastel aastatel olid siin piirkonnas käinud. Ja sellest selgus, et nendest inimestest natuke üle 60% eelistab reisida madalhooajal. Nende motivatsioon siia tulekuks on seiklus, teise kultuuri kogemine, wellness-teenused ja inspiratsiooni saadakse siis tuttavatelt või reisilehekülgedelt ja sotsiaalmeediast. Inimesed reisivad pigem iseseisvalt, mitte grupireisidega siia ja paljud soovivad kombineerida reisimist siis töötamisega, et samal ajal kaugtööd teha. Tüüpiline reisi pikkus on pigem lühike, 1-3 päeva. Erinevad tegevused, mida inimesed siin teha soovivad, on matkamine, loodusfotograafia, saun. Tihti reisitakse kaaslasega ehk siis kahekesi ja raha kulutatakse pigem alla 100 euro päevas. Ja need riigid, kus siis tõenäolisemalt tuleb suurtel pühadel külastajaid või need rahvused, kes rohkem reisivad suurtel pühadel, on siis Poola, Prantsusmaa, Soome ja Suurbritannia. Ja nende vastajate jaoks sihtkoha valikul olid olulised hind, sihtkoha atraktiivsus ja erinevad mõjutusvõimalused seal. Ja selle põhjal me jagasime loodusturistid siis 3 sihtrühma. Esimene on siis loodusentusiastid, mis on kõige suurem nendest. Nemad on siis pigem noored inimesed, kes otsivad seikluslikke tegevusi ja nemad reisivad tihti nii suvel kui ka madalhooajal. Teine on siis kultuurihuvilised, kes on natuke vanemad, kelle jaoks on tutvumine kohaliku kultuuriga hästi oluline ja nemad eelistavad siis madalhooaega. Ja kolmas on puhkuseotsijad, kes on ka pigem nooremad, otsivad lõõgastust ja looduses olemist ja samuti eelistavad madalhooaega. Ja mis me sellest siis teada saime, ongi see, et Läänemere regiooni tegelikult nähakse aastaringse loodusturismi sihtkohana. Siit otsitakse autentseid elamusi ja kohalikku kultuuri ja mõistlik on siis kasutada paindlikku hinnastrateegiat, et nende turistide jaoks atraktiivne olla. Ja nende jaoks olulised tegevused, siin lihtsalt mõned näited, ongi matkamine, linnuvaatlus, korilusretked ja nii edasi. Ja ühtlasi siis see võimalus, et neil oleks võimalik teha kaugtööd siit. Siis teine uuring, mis me tegime, oli Läänemere piirkonna ettevõtjatega. Ma panin siia iga materjali juurde lingi ka, aga ühtlasi, kui me need slaidid saadame, siis ma panen need lingid eraldi meili, et sealt võib olla lihtsam võtta. Aga selle uuringu eesmärk oli siis näha, kuidas need ettevõtjad tajuvad hooajalisust ja mis takistused neil on madalhooajal. See koosnes siis küsitlusest, mis oli veebis ja ühtlasi intervjuudest, mis me tegime ettevõtjatega ja enamus nendest ettevõtetest on siis lahti aprillist oktoobrini. Suurim potentsiaal nende meelest turismihooaja pikendamiseks ongi aprill, september ja oktoober nendel kuudel. Nende jaoks olulised turud on siseturg ja lähiturud ja müügikanaliks põhiliselt otsemüük. Ja põhilised turunduskanalid on koduleht ja suust suhu turundus, Facebook ja ka TMO-de lehed. Siin on siis põhilised väljakutsed, mis sellest selgusid, et sihtkoha bränd keskendub liialt suvehooajale, personali on raske madalhooajaks leida, teised ettevõtted on suletud, ligipääsetavus on halvem, mis puudutab siis eelkõige transporti. Nõudlus on liiga madal, ei ole piisavalt kasumlik ja ka välisturgudele on raske siseneda. Et te võite korraks mõelda, et kas teie jaoks on need väljakutsed samad või on veel midagi madalhooajal, mis on takistuseks. Ja siin on mõned teenused, mida ettevõtjad ise näevad, et võiks rohkem pakkuda. Ongi wellness teenused, loodustegevused, erinevad üritused, nagu ka Xavier välja tõi, toitlustusteenus ja veel mõned näited siin slaidil. Ja mis sellest jällegi selgub, on see, et madalhooajale võiks läheneda koostöös, et nii teiste ettevõtjatega teenuste ja pakettide loomisel ja ühisturunduses, kui ka näiteks reisikorraldajate või TMO-dega lähemat koostööd teha välisturgudele sisenemisel. Nüüd ma räägin natuke meie kontseptsioonist ja nendest elamuste kategooriatest, millest me ka lähtusime siin projektis, et seda kontseptsiooni siis põhiliselt tutvustas see video, aga me lõime ka 3 elamuste kategooriat, mille all projekti kaasatud ettevõtjad hakkasid enda teenuseid looma. Esimene on siis local lifestyle, mis on põhiliselt nendele kultuurihuvilistele, mis näitabki kohalikku eluviisi, kohalikke inimesi ja tutvustab loodusega seoses kohalikku kultuuri. Teine on nourished by nature, kus ongi sellised wellness teenused, matkamine ja kõik tegevused, mis aitavad inimestel loodusega ühendust luua. Ja kolmas on active adventures, mis on sellised seikluslikumad ja aktiivsemad tegevused, aga samas sellised teenused, millega ka algaja saab hakkama, et need ei nõua otseselt varasemad kokkupuudet nende tegevustega. Siin on mõned tootekaart siis ka Eesti teenustest, mis selles projektis loodi. Siin on 2 Hiiu gurmee teenust. Esimene on siis selline loodusmatk koos korilusega ja loodusfotograafia juhendamisega, mida nad ka testisid siin projektis. Ja teine on selline mobiilne maitsesoola töötuba, mida saab endale üritustele tellida, näiteks mõne konverentsi vahepausil teha või mõnel tiimiüritusel. Ja ma tean, et seda nad on saanud päris mitu korda juba pakkuda. Siis on Metsanurme külakeskuse teenus, mis on siis meeltematk Metsanurmel looduses, kus Anneli juhendab inimesi siis selles, et kuidas tajuda oma erinevaid meeli matkates ja millist infot nad meile annavad. Ja siin on veel 2 Hiiumaa toodet, on hõbekala oma, mis on siis selline kalamehe elutoode, kus on siis majutus, saab käia merel koos kalamehega võrke vette panemas, saab kala valmistamise töötoas osaleda ja selline, ta oli meil seal local lifestyle kategoorial siis. Ja teine on retrovisiidi oma, mis on ka koos majutusega ja on loodusmatk ja saun ja samuti saab kohalikku kala maitsta. Ja osasid nendest teenustest, mis loodi, me ka testisime päriselus. See oli siis 3 faasis. Kõigepealt oli nende samade tootekaartide hindamine, mille me oma võrgustikus laiali saatsime. Siis kui oli selgunud, et mis inimesed konkreetselt, mis teenuseid testima tulevad, siis me saatsime ka neile selle tootekaardi ja natuke eelinfot, mille põhjal nad said siis oma ootused kirja panna, et mida nad sellest teenusest eeldavad või kui atraktiivne see näib. Ja pärast testimist siis samade küsimuste alusel nad said anda tagasisidet. Ja niimoodi me piloteerisime siis 15 teenust, kus käis kokku peaaegu 200 külastajat. Ja me tahtsimegi siis testida neid päris madalhooaja tingimustes ja saada tagasisidet, mille põhjal teha parendusi. Siin on siis need indikaatorid, mille põhjal neid teenuseid hinnati, nagu kvaliteet, sobivus madalhooajaks, kestlikkus, selgus ja logistika, jutuvestmine, hinna ja kvaliteedi suhe ja soovituse tõenäosus. Ja kõik need indikaatorid paranesid siis pärast piloteerimist, ehk siis pärast teenuse kogemust andsid inimesed nendele teenustele kõrgemad hinded. Ja see näitab, et selline piloteerimine ongi siis hea viis selleks, kuidas paberil idee vormistada päris teenuseks. Saime siis teada väärtused, mida külastajad hindasid nende teenuste puhul, oli personaalne kontakt, rahulik rütm ja väiksemad grupid. Hinnati ka selliseid hooajalisi elemente, mis mõnikord meile tunduvad ebameeldivatena nagu pimedus või jahedus, aga kui sa nagu näitadki neid osana oma teenustest või midagi, mida saab nautida, siis inimesed ka naudivad neid. Ja ühtlasi siis selge juhendamine, hinnati kohalikku toitu ja traditsioone ja toodigi välja, et need teenused olid autentsed. Ja õppetunnid, mida saaks paremini teha, et eelinfot saaks veel täpsemalt anda, et mida tuleb kaasa võtta ja selga panna, siis need teenused võiksid kindlasti internetis olemas olla ja nähtavad. Mõnikord logistikas olid sellised ebavajalikud augud programmis või siis teenus ka lõppes liiga järsku, et kindlasti tuleb selline väike kokkuvõte või lõpusõnad teha koos külastajatega pärast teenust. Ehk siis sellest me ka nägime, et see madalhooaja nõudlus on olemas ja külastajad hindasid neid erinevaid teenuseid, mida me testisime. Ja külalislahkus ja selgus on tõesti väga olulised selliste teenuste puhul. Ja testimine tõstis nende kvaliteeti, ehk siis hinded olid pärast testimist kõrgemad nendele teenustele. Väikseid gruppe hinnati ja et selle nähtavuse küsimusega saaksid näiteks TMO-d kaasa aidata. Siis sellest testimisest meil valmis ka selline meediapank meie lehel, kus on siis erinevad pildid ja videod meie 5 riigist. Panin siia ka lingi ja need on teile siis vabalt kasutamiseks, madalhooaja promomiseks ja teie turundustegevuste toetamiseks, et saate sealt neid pilte võtta. Ja nende samade materjalidega me tegime siis turunduskampaania augustis. Oli 24 000 eurot meie eelarve, enamus sellest läks Saksamaale ja natuke väiksem osa siis meie projektiriikidesse. Ja see toimus siis Facebookis ja Instagramis ja tahtsimegi testida meie kontseptsiooni ja teha selline struktureeritud awareness kampaania, ehk siis mõõtsime vaatamisi, interaktsioone ja kampaania lehekülastusi. Ja meil olid siis iga teema kohta eraldi videod, mis olid 6 või 15 sekundit pikad. Siin on siis näha neid numbrilisi tulemusi, et me olime nendega päris rahul. Ja riikide kaupa, mis me nägime, oli see, et Saksamaale läks siis kõige suurem investeering ja tuli ka suurim tähelepanu, kuigi reklaamimine on seal natukene kallim. Ja Active Adventures oli siis kõige populaarsem teema. Nüüd Balti riigid olid kõige kuluefektiivsemad ja said tugeva emotsionaalse vastuse need reklaamid siin. Ja Nourished by Nature oli kõige populaarsem. Ja Põhjamaades ehk siis siin kontekstis Rootsis ja Soomes oli nähtavus hea, aga kaasatust natuke vähem ja samuti Active Adventures oli kõige populaarsem. Ehk siis jah, saime hea nähtavuse, nägime, mis on kõige populaarsem teema ja nägime, et sellised lühikesed telefonile optimeeritud videod tõesti töötavad hästi. Ja siis selline tööriist, mis võtab põhimõtteliselt kõik eelneva ühte kohta kokku, kus te saate kogu selle info põhimõtteliselt kätte, on siis meie käsiraamat ettevõtjatele Madalhooaja teenuste arendamiseks. Selle eesmärk ongi teile anda siis praktilised tööriistad ja konkreetne juhend, kuidas neid teenuseid luua. Seal on olemas erinevad teemad nagu algse olukorra analüüs ja kliendi mõistmine, elamuste kujundamine, tootearendus, kõik olulised teemad, mis tuleks läbi mõelda madalhooaja teenuste loomisel, aga samas ei ole selline käsiraamat, mille peab otsast lõpuni läbi lugema, vaid see on interaktiivne, et sisu korras saate vaadata, millised teemad teid kõige rohkem huvitavad ja peale klikkida, et ei pea nagu otsast lõpuni seda läbi lugema, kui ei ole huvi. Ja igas peatükis on ka olemas checklistid ja soovitused ja konkreetsed näited ja kogemused sellest projektist. Seal on veel paar tööriista, siis selline vormteenuste arendamiseks, kus on ka kõik teenuse põhilised aspektid välja toodud, mis peaks läbi mõtlema, saab sinna lühidalt kirja panna iga asja kohta midagi. Ja on olemas ka selline pikem checklist, kus lihtsalt näha ja kirja panna, kas sul on kõik vajalikud punktid täidetud, kui teenust luua. Ja viimane tööriist, mis meil siis veel tulemas on meie tehisaru tööriist, mis tuleb meie projekti kodulehele. Ja see annab siis ettevõtjale ideid ja soovitusi madalhooaja teenuste loomiseks. Ja selle teadmiste baas ongi siis meie projekti materjalid või siis veel mõned meie ülekontrollitud materjalid, et ta ei võta internetist suvalist infot, vaid võtabki seda, mis meie oleme üle kontrollinud ja läbi töötanud. See peaks valmima maikuuks ja sinna tuleb siis sisestada mõned andmed enda ettevõtte kohta, nagu nimi ja asukoht ja põhitegevus. Ja ühtlasi saab siis seal valida ka mõningaid teemasid või aspekte, et millist teenust sooviksite luua. Ja vastusena ta annab siis tekstilise soovituse ja juurde ka mõned pildid meie meediapangast. Ja ta annabki siis inspiratsiooni, mitte otseselt välja töötatud teenust, vaid erinevaid soovitusi, et millises suunas võiks liikuda. Ja ma panin siia ka meie beta-versiooni testimise lingi. Et praegu me testime seda ja ootame ka teilt tagasisidet, kui te seda kasutate ja te saate sellele tagasisidet anda, mille põhjal me siis teeme teda veel paremaks maikuuks, kui ta päriselt siis käiku läheb. Et kutsume teid üles ka testima seda. Ehk siis mida te tänasest võiksite kaasa võtta Light in the Dark osas? Ma arvan, ongi see käsiraamat, kus on kõige rohkem teemasid kokku pandud kokkuvõtlikult. Siis on külastajate uuring, kus te saate vaadata selle projekti sihtgruppe ja persoonasid, mida te ise saate ka kasutada või arendada selle põhjal. Siis need elamused, mis on ka selles käsiraamatus pikemalt kirjeldatud, et milliseid teenuseid üldse võiks luua. Piloteerimisest saate näha, mis on meie piirkonna väärtused, mida külastajad hindavad ja mis teemadele rohkem tähelepanu pöörata, kui neid teenuseid arendada või külalisi võõrustada. Siis meediapank on kindlasti abiks turunduses ja tehisaru tööriist, mis annab samuti inspiratsiooni siis uute teenuste loomisel. Siia ma panin uuesti siis lingid, üks on meie projekti kodulehele, kus need on olemas ja teine on siis meie Interregi leht, kus need on samuti olemas siis solutionite ja outputide all. Et jah, inimesed ei otsi täiuslikkust, nad otsivad ehedust, mõnusat õhkkonda ja hästi ettevalmistatud teenuseid. Väiksed grupid, selged ootused, isiklikud lood ja kohalikud elamused on olulisemad kui perfektne ilm. Aga aitäh minu poolt, panin siia veel lingid ja minu meiliaadressi, et kui hiljem tekib veel küsimusi selle projekti kohta, siis võite kirjutada. Ma lõpetan praegu jagamise. Ja võite küsida, ma vaatan chatis on ka mõned küsimused. Jah, see 100 eurot päevas oli siis inimese kohta. Ja saadan materjalid ka meilile. Aga võite ka mikrofoniga küsida.
Mina hea meelega küsiks. Tahtsin küsida, kas selles käsiraamatus on hindade kujundamisest midagi?
Seal on hinnastamise peatükk ka, ja.
Okei. Ja teine, kuidas leida neid kliente, kes on nõus maksma mingi teenuse eest? eriti kui nad on eraisikud ja ei tule gruppidega nagu, nad vist ei reisibiroode kaudu või kuidas nad leiavad, kuhu minna?
Siit uuringust selgus jah, et need loodusturistid pigem reisivad iseseisvalt, aga ma soovitakski võib-olla teha koostööd teiste teenuste pakkujatega, teha võimalikult tihedat koostööd oma DMO-ga, vaadata, et Visit Estonia lehel oleks kõik te pakutavad teenused üleval, lihtsalt, et see info oleks nagu võimalikult kättesaadav nendele inimestele ja ka väliskülastajatele. Loodan, et see vastas natuke küsimusele.
Jah,
Ja
aitäh.
kas soovib veel keegi küsida midagi? Kui hetkel ei soovi, siis jah, ma saadan meilile selle salvestuse. Ma saadan kõik need materjalid ja slaidid ja ka selle teise esitluse, mida Xavier mainis, kus saab ka veel natuke põhjalikumalt lugeda nende tulemuste kohta, millest ta täna rääkis. Ja ma saadan ka selle AI tööriista beta versiooni testimise lingi, et väga ootame, et te testite ja annate tagasisidet, et võite jagada ka mõne teise turismiettevõtjaga, aga laiemalt me hetkel ei soovi jagada, et sotsiaalmeediasse me seda postitama ei hakka, sest et soovimegi kindlasti nagu turismiinimestelt saada seda tagasisidet ja turismiettevõtjatelt, aga teie olete kõik väga oodatud vastama sellele. Aga siis hetkel ma lõpetaksin selle seminari ja väga tore, et suur hulk inimesi tundis huvi selle vastu ja te olete kohal. Ja kindlasti hoidke peal silma meie sotsiaalmeediakanalitel, seal me jagame selle projekti infot, kui ka selle projekti koduleht pidevalt uueneb nii selle AI tööriistaga, kui lisame sinna veel täiendavaid materjale. Et loodame, et olete saanud kasu sellest projektist ja saate veel ka tulevikus info näol. Suur tänu teile ja aitäh!